Welcome back to Locked On Women's Basketball. You are listening to episode 16 of our WNBA Retrospect series, a historical look back at the greatest draft prospects in league history. Today we'll discuss A'ja Wilson. Before Wilson was a back-to-back WNBA champion and the best player on the planet, arguably, but it's pretty consensus at this point. She started at South Carolina under Dawn Staley. We'll dive into our pre-draft scouting report on Wilson, her draft grade, and more. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
Ogunbowale for the win.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Welcome. You Women's Basketball. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. My name is Hunter Cruse. I'm your Saturday host, covering the WNBA draft and prospect scouting. I'm joined by co-hosts M. Adler and Lincoln Shafer. M covers the WNBA with a focus on player development and the game within the game. Lincoln is our biomechanics guru and contributes to WNBA draft coverage at The Next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Our conversation subject today is South Carolina's A'ja Wilson. Over her 4 seasons in college, she was a 4-time All-American, a 1-time national champion, and averaged an absurd 22.6 points and 11.8 rebounds in under 30 minutes per game as a senior. I'll give the floor to you, M. What made A'ja just so special as a prospect?
Everything. I mean, what didn't? I mean, honestly, Hunter, can you name to me something that A'ja did in college that you would like that was even remotely below average for a center? Like anything?
No, there was nothing. I mean,
nope. There was literally nothing, and it is not only like the progression over time is kind of funny, right? And you kind of get these. We've talked about this before, how I guess sort of fun, sort of challenging it is to evaluate players in different contexts. When you start off with A'ja, she's coming off the bench as a freshman, despite being like far and away the best player on her team at that point. If it works, it works. And she just wreaks havoc, every time there. And she pretty much plays a traditional sort of 5 cents, but you can see there's a lot of skill flowing there. She's still doing a hell of a lot of passing, just sort of big passing around to the interior in a way that I would say in a way that was kind of comparable to the way we saw it with BG, which is, it's not active playmaking, but like for a center, commanding doubles and passing around them, it's real value added. And then as, time goes on, the next year, she is basically starting at the 5 or at like the 4.5. She plays like the offensive 4, the defensive 5. And there's a lot that just goes, it's just like, she just gets the reins to everything. Everything's great. Junior year, the offense sort of starts becoming what we've seen the past couple of years of South Carolina, which we've talked about in this pod before. I won't get into that. And then senior year, it's the same, except she's now taller than everyone else. So it's kind of different contexts. You see different skills. Lincoln, what were the biggest things that you saw in terms of the different sort of skills that popped up over time that made her more interesting than your average good center?
Yeah, the first thing, it takes about 30 seconds of watching A'ja to realize that she's a special athlete for a 6'4", 6'5" big. She moves so fluidly and so smoothly. She can drive both ways. She is kind of just a wizard from the high post. If you put her at the elbow or at the free throw line, it's a bucket. She's scoring the ball. But like you mentioned, one of the things that really sets her apart from other dominant post scorers is that passing. She'd never averaged more than like 1.7 assists per game at South Carolina, but she really is adding value, passing out of double teams, making skip passes out of post ups, and like finding teammates and creating good looks. She's lethal from 18 feet and in, really. I think she takes about 17 threes in 4 years at South Carolina. Not that important. She's 5 for 12 as a senior, which is very good. But the thing that sets her apart is the athleticism and the passing to me. She's so quick. She can like just get by any one-on-one defender. She's got an explosive first step at 6'5".
Mhm.
She's driving
Unbelievable.
baseline out of face-ups. You see like flashes of the face-up game that has torn WNBA defenses apart for the last 5 years. But it's just she's just kind of good at everything.
Yeah, and I mean, even on top of that, the thing that really helps unlock the opportunities to operate out of the face-up and adds gravity to the passing is that she's so damn good moving without the ball on the interior, which again, really hard to find for a center, and just the ways that it impacts court gravity. I think in terms of what you were saying about the athleticism, there were a lot of times in watching her that I just saw her running down the floor and then pin someone in, quickly finish over them in transition, or you see her operate in the half court, and for a second I forgot that I was watching a center. She, in that sort of physical way, she's a lot like what we saw with LJ when she was younger.
And what did you guys think about the defense for her? Did you guys believe? Like for me, I was impressed with 4.2 stocks to two fouls per game, which is
It's so good.
it's impressive.
Yeah.
It's
Now,
stupid.
the defense was good. I was impressed with what she did as a help defender. I thought there's a little bit of versatility, being able to come out in space. She had some nasty blocks and help in transition as well. I was just like you guys said, elite mover, and as we're seeing in the W,
Well, and
very good defender too.
with the defense, there's like flashes where if they're in a zone and she has to slide out to the corner, there's flashes of defending in space one-on-one. There's flashes of defending post-ups, and there's just consistent good help defense in the paint. She's blocking a ton of shots. She has great hands in passing lanes, which has also continued into the WNBA. She's just there's not that much to say about her because it's like an archetype we've seen before, but a player that maximizes every piece of that archetype. There's some small, like really minuscule issues with the defense where she's overcommitting in some spots, but not quite committing to the same degree in other spots. But it's not a concern. The effort is there. The positioning is good. It's just timing and committing, and it's extremely coachable. They're just little weird mistakes, and it's easy to fix. She's carrying huge usage offensively and is still incredibly efficient. She has like a career 59% true shooting percentage at South Carolina while carrying a 30% usage for 3 of those 4 seasons.
I'm playing
She's
kind of out of position for half of it.
right, and she's just good.
I think, in terms of defense, I think you're underselling it. I think you're both like extremely underselling it. We could have differing opinions on this, but honestly, the only issue I saw was that she just seemed to be a little bit slow recovering on pick and rolls in space or pick and pops just in general, which I think is partly because of the scheme. I don't know why you would ask your center to commit to recovering on the pop the same way in college that you would in the W, just considering who's popping with them. I think in terms of what you guys were saying with the space, there is a real benefit to having this era that we're in now with these prospects. And it's of course, the same thing we have today, where if you want to say, I wonder what Asia looks like defending in space, because I don't see it a lot when they play UConn with South Carolina or when they are playing, obviously, Mississippi State. You can go and you say, oh, hey, they had a home and home with Ohio State. Let me see how that went. And you can see Asia having to defend in space for large parts of the game because of how Ohio State plays in transition, because of how they string everyone out in pick and rolls. And look, I didn't have questions about that, but man, I got a lot of answers. We do not see a lot of guards who have the ability to step over and flip their hips as well as she was. She mirrored so goddamn well in ISO, even on, mismatches guarding threes. Just the timing of her help, her switches, her awareness, her communication, everything to me was essentially as perfect as it could get. It was like if you took Sylvia Fowles, took away some of the bulk, and gave her some more mobility for the most part. You have trade-offs with that, but also like you're built from the modern age in the same way. And I think that's why, she has developed as she's come along in the W as well. But it's not really hard to see the path from that to back Defensive Player of the Years.
So she's just a 2K build, basically? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, it's like a 2K build if you didn't even care about shooting threes.
Right. Good player. So after the break, we'll get into our scouting grade on Asia. But first, let's talk about FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. This app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Welcome back. I'm your host, Hunter Cruse, and thanks for joining us. Let's get into our scouting grade on Asia, solely based on the film we watch, pre-WNBA, taking into account current philosophies now, and then also just schematic things we see. But first, for those unfamiliar, we use a baseball-like 20/80 scouting scale. A 40 grade is your average WNBA contributor, 45 is the top-end backup, 50 is your average starter, 55 is an above-average starter, 60 is an all-star caliber player, 70 is an all WNBA caliber player, and 80 is reserved for your MVP candidates. I'll turn it to you, M, for your scouting grade on Asia, which is going to be easy. It's going to be easy.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to looking back at some players, we do some players and it's like, they won an MVP, but was it super deserved? Tina Charles. Or, they made a bunch of all WNBA teams, but, was that, more defensive reputation than actual impact? But, we're in a day and age when it's A'ja Wilson. She's still active. We just watched her just dominate her way to a finals MVP. She's obviously like the correct answer is it's an 80 plus. That's not my answer. My answer is an 8, just like straight up, mostly for reasons that relate to seeing her within context of what it was back then. For me, you have to sort of bet on a couple things, which have obviously come true to, I think, go with an 8. But I think, looking at the film and selecting for opponents that are going to play her in ways that you may have questions about, like I said, with Ohio State, or just with times that South Carolina wants to spread her out more, whether that's senior year or sophomore year, you can really see just how incredibly advanced the face-up ability is, which I think, in terms of volume and in terms of getting not only to good shots, but getting to great shots and not settling for mid-range shots that might not go in as much. For me, I found that very projectable with her in a way that I think with others, there's a lot more question about how to do it. And also, I think just in terms of thinking about how do skills, reflect the other and play up each other, I think having as insane of a mid-range game as Lincoln you mentioned before, that for me, means is you can get to the W in this day and age. It means that you have the ability to play in space, and because you're so good at the jumper, open up the drive in a way that is just completely unguardable. And I mean, we see that at times in South Carolina, and it's sick, and it's what happens. So yeah, just a flat 8 on her.
Yeah, I also have an 8 grade. The tools are there. She's incredibly talented, and she clearly reads the floor well. She doesn't get huge opportunities to show off the mid-range touch that she has, but it's there. It's very obviously there that she's an incredible scorer. She's a good passer and a great defender. There's just, what more could you want out of a big? It's A'ja Wilson is like the prototypical big to put in a modern offense. You have space around her, and she just creates chaos in a defense, and it's points on the board every single time.
She probably, I think, because of, just bringing up that point, I think because of her gravity and efficiency and versatility as a scorer, is, I think, in a lot of ways, the WNBA version of Nikola Jokic, but not because of the same skill. People want to compare the skill of passing, but the way she affects the floor and just creates so much offense on her own, I think, is effectively the same. And it's really cool in that way.
There's a lot of uncertainty in the world today, and it's important to be prepared. The Jace case is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibodies that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can use your customized case and add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. Jace Medical offers customizable for your Jace case with dozens of add-on medications. Choose the medications that best fit you and your family's needs. Go to jacemedical.com and enter promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON at jasemedical.com. All right. So for segment 3, I want to start off by just reading Asia's absurd resume to this point. And reminder, she's still only 27, going on 28 years old. So in the middle of her prime. Okay, she's a 2-time WNBA MVP, 2-time WNBA champion, a back-to-back Defensive Player of the Year winner. She's made the All-WNBA team 4 times. She's a 4-time All-Star. She was a 1-time national champion in college, a 4-time All-American in college, and was the MVP at last year's FIBA World Cup. And then if it's basketball reference, she's somehow a 6-time SEC Player of the Year. We still don't know. Okay, yeah, but just absurdity from that point of view. So
The correct number on that is 3 SEC Players of the Year, to be fair, which is still incredibly impressive.
Is that good?
It's not 6, but it's 3, which is incredible. So every year she was a full-time starter.
Yeah,
every year she was a full-time starter. Yeah. I mean,
yes.
Asia's career, you can kind of split it into 2 segments. Even through just 6 seasons, the first 4 seasons with Bill Laimbeer as the coach, where she takes like a total of 4 3-point attempts for the whole 4 years. And then the 2 years with Becky Hammon, where her efficiency goes way up and she's still scoring a ton of points per game and she's still grabbing rebounds, blocking shots, and getting steals. But that line of demarcation is so clear in looking at her stats, and it's so clear watching the games too. You see just how much more space she has to operate with.
Yeah, to sort of go a little farther on what you were saying, it's to say that her efficiency improves is a little bit of an understatement. She goes from the mid 70%. She's basically like at the tail end of the top quartile in scoring efficiency to, like the top 5, not percentiles, just, of the entire league. There is actually one thing to point out is there is actually a slight demarcation in the Bill era, which was frustrating for everyone who watched at the time, which is for 1 year, Liz Cambage is not there. And we have the wobble. And Lincoln, do you know what Asia does that year?
Is that the first MVP?
Yes, it is. And everyone hated the fact that they, again, went back to Liz the year after. Maybe some people didn't at the time, but it was still annoying to watch her play the 4 instead of the 5, as good as she was. Again, there is just... It's really hard also, to summarize what happened the past couple of years.
Like, playing the 4, she's one of the best 4s in the game. She's averaging 19 points and 8 rebounds per game under Bill Laimbeer. She wins an MVP. She's still an incredibly good basketball player, but she just makes that leap when she's put into a more modern system, starts playing less with another traditional 5, and just goes from like 46% from the field to 52, and just and that number goes up again in the 2023 season. And she's just an awesome basketball player who's good at everything you want her to be good at and is fun. And she's a great personality too. Asia Wilson is
the league has never basketball. The league has never had a more charismatic face and just a better person for people to look at and look up to. And just to reiterate on that point about how good she was early on, despite the system, Asia Wilson, pretty strong MVP winner in 2020, leads the Aces to the 1 seed. The Aces that season, their starting lineup was Asia. Sorry, I should go 1 to 5. It was Lindsay Allen, Kayla McBride, 33-year-old coming off of injury, Angel McCautry, Asia Wilson, and Carolyn Swords. Carolyn Swords, who played so well that that one very notable basketball analyst at one point in that season stopped referring to her by name and only tweeted about her as redacted.
Who was brought out of retirement to play on that team.
Sorry, I forgot about that point. Thank you.
But she's pretty almost inarguably after this postseason where she averaged 24 and 12, like the best player in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how else you can, like, if you watch basketball and you don't love watching A'ja Wilson, I question a lot of things.
And there are parts of her game that I think, even talking about her dominance the way that we have the past couple minutes, like, it's true. It's what happened. But it also, I think, almost does a disservice to the fact that she has continued getting better basically every year, not just because of system changes, but, we talked about the back-to-back defensive players of the year before. 2 years ago when she won that first one, there was a fair argument, I think. I personally didn't vote for her for that. No qualms against her winning it, but I had Stewie just because of the help defense, because, A'ja, especially under Bill, who just did not have a lot of good help defenses that he was coaching back then. Someday he'll pay for his crimes against basketball over the past couple of years of his career. But anyway, A'ja got better as that season went on, and by the end of the season, was that level. It didn't start that way. And then this season, again, she comes into the year being that good, that very good, and it's super impressive what she's able to do on sort of the high volume that she has to do it at. But it's not as impactful, let's say, as someone like, this is an unfair comp, but like someone like Sylvia Fowles, who did the same volume but to an even greater degree of deterrence. And then again, as this season goes along, you have A'ja going from great volume, very good effectiveness, to, again, by the end of the season, in Game 4 of the finals, you literally see her at times preventing JJ from getting a touch in the post, and then sort of stunting out and making sure that Benijah Laney can't get a shot off 8 feet from the rim, and then getting back to John Quell to make sure a shot doesn't get off again. It is we have not had any player since, I think, Sylvia Fowles' prime who is able to do things close to this.
Yeah, and no disrespect to Sil, she's not the offensive player that A'ja is. And that's just, A'ja is just an incredibly fun basketball player and also incredibly good, which is my favorite combination.
And at this point in time, honestly, I think probably inarguably one of the 10 best players in league history.
I haven't gone through an exact list, but that sounds right.
Yeah. Maybe on the lower end. I'll take another MVP.
2-time MVPs, finals MVPs, 2-time DPOYs. So,
especially under two completely different systems, and adapting seamlessly as the focal point of both. I think, on that note, we do have one more thing we like to do on this show. That's
correct.
Do you have any comparisons for, when you're watching A'ja as a prospect, how you would give a comp to what she looked like?
Yeah, the only comparison that I have comes courtesy of the research feature from our friends at Her Hoop Stats, where I looked at A'ja's stats in college and gave them a bit of a dumbing down to put into the system to make it a little more realistic. And using that, where you qualify having a high usage rate, getting a lot of rebounds, scoring at a high rate, and getting a lot of steals and blocks, the first option that I came up with through that is a more efficient, better scoring version of Lisa Leslie. So that's the only comparison that I have.
For reference, for those of you listening at home, Lisa Leslie, widely considered one of probably the dead-on third best defensive player in league history.
Yeah, just one of the best players
and
in league
history. Also a 3-time MVP, despite good but not excellent efficiency.
Yeah.
So funny.
It's not even wrong, though.
No, it's not. I mean, you can go back and watch Lisa Leslie, and it actually makes complete sense if you look at that. I didn't think of that. That's good. I actually have a couple to span the eras and get us out of here with.
Yeah, let's go.
as I alluded to before, in terms of that, the killer driving ability and how it opens up everything else, and just, looking at someone and being like, yes, a perfect rim protector. To me, this is, in terms of the more like scientific comp, this is, to me, LJ, if you traded off the incredible volume 3-point shooting for more mobility. LJ is not killing people with, with the drives. It's more as a complement. It's more as an off-ball spot up action, and as opposed to Asia, being able to handle from the key and get downhill. And the same thing on defense, I think.
Right.
And I think maybe a more relatable one is Asia, to me, is just exactly what people wanted BG to be as a prospect, but wasn't.
Yeah.
So you can go back and listen to our episode on BG and Linda Deladon and Skylar Diggins-Smith if you're curious what that means. But as always, thank you for joining us on this Saturday edition of Locked On Women's Basketball. We'll be joined next week, once again, by Lincoln, myself, and Hunter. We'll be talking about Brianna Stewart, who you may have heard of. She was a pretty good basketball player at one point in time, and who was the number 1 pick and actually the draft before Asia's in 2016. We'll be talking about her.
2 drafts before. But yeah.
That's correct, because we'll get to Kelsey Plum 2 weeks later. So we'll get to Stewie, number 1 pick that year, and maybe a couple other UConn players she was drafted with who also turned out to be pretty good at some point in time or another. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.